Good evening, everybody. My name is Andrew Botieri. I'll be your guest host tonight for another Talk of the Town. This is show 368. And again, we want to, before I introduce our guests, I did want to welcome everybody. And also, let's start by welcoming our great underwriters, of course, Stowell's Cafe in Manamet. Brewster, PC Solutions with Wrestling. Brewster, hi Wrestling. I know you're probably watching. Attorneys Tripoletti and Costa on Long Pond Road as well. And then additional underwriters are Dave and Kevin Gallerani, owners of Cape Auto Body and Service Repair, locations in Samoset and Sandwich Street right here in Plymouth. And they're nice little pens that they have right here. Don't forget, if you do see Karen or Ken around town, please stop and say hello. And if Ken owes you any money, I'm sure his pockets will be empty. But tonight's show will be re-aired on the 18th due to the preparation for the Rotary auction that is happening next week as well. But also I want to thank Karen and Ken for having me here as guest host. And so Karen, I know you're watching from home, and looking forward to getting your review on tonight's show. So we'll see you in about 14, Karen. My guest tonight is somebody that I'm very, very honored to have. Has been such a integral part of Plymouth and also the area as a not only business owner, but as a former state legislator, and now our state senator here for the Plymouth area as well as the Bonsall area is state senator, and I love saying that, Vinny deMacedo. Welcome, Vinny.
Andrew, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be on your show and frankly be on Talk of the Town.
Yeah, well, it's I tell you, there's been a lot going on, and I've been spending a lot of time going over all the questions and everything and just kind of getting an idea of what we're going to talk about. But as I was putting together tonight's show, and as I do most of the time that I'm either on the Three Amigos or here as a guest host, it's really about what has been happening. And as I look at our leaders in not only the Commonwealth locally here, but also statewide as well as national, I always kind of have a difference of what difference between like a politician and a civic leader. And Vinny really exudes what a civic leader is all about, where it's really about him giving back. And whether it's as a business owner, he owns his own, was it RWA Mobile?
That's correct.
Down in Cedarville, where if you get there early enough in the morning, he'll even fill your tank for you. But also as an incredible husband and father, and we'll talk a little bit about his family, but also the public servant. I mean, how many years was it as state rep? 16 years as a state rep. Yeah. And now filling the shoes of Therese Murray as of November of 2014. Voted in at November of 2014, got sworn in January, right?
Yep.
Yeah. With along, of course, Charlie Baker. But it's really kind of interesting to see I mean, at one point, Massachusetts, the Commonwealth, used to be heavily Republican, and then it sort of lost that realm, if you will. But as we saw, Governor Baker get elected, which was an incredible victory, and great guy, and I've loved what he's done so far with the challenges of the MBTA, which we'll chat about briefly as well. But even how across the country, the governorships of Republicans just swept across the country.
And I think that's in part because you have a president that's of the opposite party, and in anything clearly the current president has an agenda, and he's very adamant about his agenda. Mm-hmm. And so when there's concern, that you'll tend to see that balance. As a matter of fact, I mean, you look at Massachusetts, probably the most predominantly Democratic states in the country. Yeah. And yet we have a Republican governor. It defies logic. But I think that there's something in people that likes to check and balance. Yeah. And I think that that's why you see that, knowing that there's predominantly a Democratic legislature, having a Republican governor gives you some level of balance. And frankly, balance is a good thing in government. It's always been my opinion that check and balance is a very good thing, and it's a hard thing to run on. As an individual, but my personal opinion is Charlie Baker did a great job of it. He didn't run against the legislature. He ran on the fact that he was going to be a check and balance, that he was going to be a good fiscal leader, and he's going to work with the opposite party, which frankly if you look at Romney, when he ran against the legislature.
Yeah, he did.
And so it's a different mindset, and yet it worked. It worked for him. And I think people, my personal opinion, want to see us making progress. They don't want to see total logjam. They want to see progress, and they want to see people giving and taking. And frankly, that's what I think people have seen in Governor Baker. And if you listen to him now, and there's ample opportunity to blame the predecessor. I mean, you see it happen often in Washington. Oh, it's this was Bush's fault, or this was Clinton's fault, and that's that tends to be the game. You're not hearing any of that out of him. Listen, we understand there's problems. We're going to fix it. I got elected to fix the problem, and I have to give him credit in that regard.
Well, and you're right, and we talked a little bit about that earlier before we had gone on, about the fact that people who have been in business are solution orientated. I run companies. I've run companies in the past, and there's no kicking the ball down the road. It doesn't happen that way, and it really is about here's a problem. Let's find a solution. And I really found that the tone of Speaker DeLeo and some of the other heads of the Democratic Party. And I know it's hard for them to really embrace Charlie, but I sort of felt there was quite a more warming, if you will, than the last probably 2 years of Deval Patrick, where he almost seemed like he was fighting against the legislature.
And let me give you my opinion of why I think that may be the case. There's almost a sense where Stanley Rosenberg, the Senate president, and now Bob DeLeo are now equals with the governor, and so there's that respect that I know the governor's giving them. When you had the predecessor, well, he was the head of the Democratic Party, and ultimately they were perceived under him, and ultimately should be doing what he wanted to do. And yet there was definitely a philosophical difference, clearly with the previous Senate president, Senator Therese Murray, who we all know very well, and Bob DeLeo. Let's just say I don't think they were as left or progressive as he was, and so you had that fight within their party. What you see now, in my personal opinion, is you're seeing the governor and the two other leaders saying, you know what? We got to work together. We've got some real challenges. The reality is we're facing a $1.8 billion deficit. Everyone knows the governor walked into a $768 million deficit. So he had to first thing out of the box had to make $768 million of cuts. And just to put that in context, they were made halfway through the year. So what ends up happening is it's the equivalent of making $1.5 billion dollars in cuts, and that's a tough thing to do. $1.5 billion is a significant amount of money, and and it hurts. It hurts a lot of different agencies, and it's hard. But I believe that the Democratic legislature and the governor said, "Hey, we got to do this together." And I'm seeing this cooperation, and frankly, I'm pretty encouraged about it, because that's what I like to see. I like to see us working together. It's so easy to place blame. We have to move forward.
Well, and what's really important, I think, is the fact that, and I've known you for a while, and now that we got Matt Murray as state rep as well, and as we were talking about, again, you guys are business people, and you are solution oriented. There's also another part of, again, when I divide out the civil servant to the politician, and and this is just a general statement, that there's a lot of people in politics that are failed business people, because they couldn't achieve that, and so they hold on to their own fiefdoms, in whether it's a small little committee or whatever it might be. Again, that's my personal opinion. And what I think we've gotten Charlie Baker, who again is a proven businessman, has done turnarounds. I mean, I've done 6 turnarounds in my career as well, and it takes a lot. There's a lot of pain that goes along with it. But as I used to tell my sales teams over the years, is I'm not here for a popularity contest. I'm here because the company sent me here to get the job done. And I see that. And when DeLeo came out, Rosenberg came out, and they really seemed like there was an olive branch. And I think, and it might be for the fact that they really realize what a tough situation our Commonwealth is in.
I think there's clearly respect. I mean, let's face it. The Speaker, Senate President, they know that Charlie Baker was good at what he did. He was the Secretary of A&F. He was the Secretary of Health and Human Services. He was the the leader of Harvard Program Health. Turned it around. He's done this consistently, so he's proven himself. He's not the new kid on the block, new governor. He knows, and frankly, he knows how to work with the people. I guess my experience with the governor is that it's not my way or the highway. It's, hey, how do we work together? What's the problem? How do we fix it? Let me listen to you. Yeah, certainly he has his ways of doing things, but there's this respect of individuals, and frankly, that's what we need to do. I just see it too often. I know it's right, and so we're going to go in that direction. And frankly, I know for myself, there were things that I thought were right, and I realized through the legislative process, through hearing the other side, that maybe I wasn't always right. And there is another side to that story. That's the beauty of our government. That's the beauty of bringing the two sides together to try to find some consensus and compromise. I'm just one of those people that just say, that says 65% is better than no percent. And there are some of my colleagues that frankly I may agree with on more, but if they don't get 100%, they don't want anything. And I just think that that's wrong. And that's on both sides of the aisle.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And people expect us to work together. They expect us to have that common sense. I know Bob DeLeo very well. He's been a good friend. We may disagree on some issues, but he's a sincere man. I know Stan Rosenberg, same thing. We probably disagree more publicly on politics, and now I'm in the Senate. But he's respectful. He treats me with respect. I treat him with respect. We may argue our differences, but I think at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We want the Commonwealth to thrive. And, we may have different approaches on it. I'll give my perspective, as you said, as a small business owner, because, I just some common sense principles that I think I bring to the job. He's a policy guy. It's funny, Charlie Baker was both. But Charlie Baker is a business owner, and he has that concept, the very strong business sense. He's also a real policy wonk. I mean, he lights up when you talk policy, believe it or not. This is a very bright guy, but he enjoys the policy debate, which is an interesting thing. I mean,
it's needed.
It is. Yeah. It is. He has a great skill set. I think it's perfect for the time that we're in right now. And my hope is that we continue the cooperation. Let's work on the things that we can agree on. Let's not fight about the things we disagree on, because frankly, we're not going to change. We come from different parties. There's probably, what are the things that we agree on? And frankly, I think financially, we all want to, right the ship financially. We don't want to be in a position, and frankly, no agency in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, no school system wants to find out halfway through the year that their budget's going to be cut. They would rather know the truth earlier. And so we shouldn't be doing this. That's why I've always adopted, and being on the Committee on Ways and Means for 12 years. I've just recently got appointed as the ranking member on Ways and Means in the Senate side. And I really enjoy that, because I tried to bring that common sense approach in regards to the fact that, budget conservatively. And if things get better, then we can do what they call sub-budgets. We can address other needs. But don't overspend, maybe for political reasons, to get this and to get that for an election year. Budget conservatively, and then if the revenues come in better than you think, then you can address some of these other, wants as opposed to needs.
Not much different than what a household will do.
Of course, and that's what we do. And I guess I've been around in business now, but this is my 25th year in business, and I've had some some good times, and I've had some tough times, and I've seen it, and that experience has really put me in a position as a business owner, is that when I have those good times now, I don't go and spend it. I put it aside. I try to do that.
The rainy day fund.
The rainy day fund, and it's and I have to give Speaker Finneran some real credit for this, because I'll tell you, I even myself early on was at that time, let's return it back, let's return it back to the taxpayer, and I understand that concept. But you know what? There also the role of government. When things get tough is when you need the money. Because people have lost their jobs, unemployment's higher, unemployment insurance, the people that need it, people's need for state services are greater when things are bad. So there was some wisdom in that, and he tried to do a constitutional amendment that would have codified into our Constitution the growth of the continuing putting money in the rainy day fund at a certain percentage that really would have put us in a better position when the economy crash, you know, in '08.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't, you know, he was talking about this back in '01, '02, '03. He never perceived what would happen.
Especially the extent of what happened in '08.
In '08. Yet, you know, there's some real wisdom in that. And, you know, and this is a guy who wasn't a business owner. So it's interesting to say he wasn't a business owner, but I think he had a keen political sense and a financial sense as well.
Well, I think he was also, and I've never met him, but I've listened to him when he was on RKO in the morning, and but he really seemed like he was a people person, and he really believed in the people of the Commonwealth. And I think that also where you have that compassionate empathy, you realize that you've got to do something. You're talking about both sides of the aisles working together. It just reminds me, you know, when we look at what's happening in Washington, D.C., where you know, they don't even talk to one another, and you look at you know, Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill, where they would, you know, they'd argue all day, and then they'd go drink some scotch together and arrive at a solution, and then Reagan would go to his party and say, this is what we're going to do. Tip would go to the Democrats and say, this is what we're going to do, and it would get done. And it's unfortunate that, you know, that doesn't exist down in Washington, D.C., and we see it almost every day with every single thing. So it's just wonderful. And you've always been, I mean, I've got friends here in the Plymouth area who are Democrats, they're liberals, and they always have something nice to say about Vinny deMacedo, that he's a great guy, he works with both sides of the aisle, and I think that, you know, that really is a benefit to everybody here in the Commonwealth, because things are going to get done, and you know, we've got so many things going on, such a mess in many cases, that, you know, that's great to see and see that happening now.
Well, you see what's happening, I think, frankly, in Washington, and frankly, the message that I think it sends to the world is that they're not unified. So America isn't on the same page. I think that's a dangerous message, and despite our political differences, that's why, frankly, if both sides gave a little bit, it would be much better for our status in the world.
I agree.
Because I'm telling you, I just came back from Lisbon, and there's a perception that, you know, that there's this huge division. And frankly, I think it's real, but the reality is it shouldn't be. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And so you may have all the power in the world. You shouldn't use it. You should respect your adversaries and treat them with respect, because in turn they will treat you with respect. And that will be the way that people will perceive us as a nation, because we're the United States of America. We're all in this together.
Yeah.
And so when they dislike us, they dislike all of us, not just the Republicans or the Democrats. They dislike all of us. This is, and you're seeing it happen time and time again in this one-upsmanship on both sides, and I'm, you know, and I'm really concerned about it as a nation. So for me, you know, in my world, in the legislature, I just make sure that, you know, I don't do this. I may disagree with someone, but I don't dislike them. Yeah. You know, you know, that's just common sense, and I just know from my entire life. I mean, I'm a Republican. You know, you know, other people are Democrats. I don't talk to people. I don't think about them as Republicans or Democrats. They're people. They're nice people. You know, one of my closest friends, I've said this a lot, up in the legislature, and he's now a sheriff in Middlesex County. He's Peter Katusian, and Peter Katusian isn't. You know, he's a liberal Democrat, but he's, you know, he and I have a great, you know, relationship or friendship. We respect one another. We may disagree. We laugh about it a little bit, and then you move on. What I've come to find out is that everybody has a story. Everybody is who they are because of where they were brought up, what the society was, what the circumstances in their socioeconomic world, and that's why they are there. I'm a small business owner. That's probably what kind of defined who I was as a Republican in you know, as in the legislature. So I bring that. People bring other things. I respect them. We try to find that balance. It is key for us, in my personal opinion, is we really have to stop this tearing people down. And I go back to the national level. It is not healthy for this country.
And it affects our national security.
It really does. And I'll give you a perfect example. We are, you know, $18 trillion in debt. And there are ways that we could stop this, in my personal opinion, and start to rein in and do it in a very responsible way, and we could work together if we work together. The problem is they won't work together. So we're not solving a very important issue. Social Security, another huge issue. We're not solving that issue because we won't work together, because what they're waiting for is the other side to screw up so they can say, see, he doesn't care about, you know, the elderly or the Social Security.
Political gain.
Political gain. And again, I'm saying both sides of the aisle here. And I'll be honest, I don't necessarily agree with the president and his philosophy. I wish both sides would come together and I'm fearful it won't happen, which is a shame. But whoever our next president is, I pray that they will do what I believe Charlie Baker has done is work to build that gap between Republicans and Democrats. Because at the end of the day, as I said, we are all members of the United States of America, or citizens of the United States of America.
Yeah, and well, the president came in saying he was going to be a uniter, and he's he's demonstrated by his actions that he's a divider, and that hasn't been healthy. That hasn't been healthy at all. Talking about Social Security, there was a report on tonight, as a matter of fact, where there's, I think, 35 people in the world that are like over 112 years old or something like that. Well, in the United States, there's 200 plus people who are well over like 130, 140 years that have been receiving Social Security benefits to the tune of $1.3 billion, which is fraud, whether it's family members who, even though that person's been deceased, has still been collecting the checks and cashing them, illegal aliens getting a hold of Social Security. $1.3 billion. And that's just one small cause. If you start adding up all this other stuff, maybe we could drop that, start paying off the deficit, because it's hundreds of millions of dollars in interest like a day. I mean, it's crazy.
And it's simply sending a message that, we're a compassionate people and we want to help people. We just don't want the abuse. And frankly, if you abuse, there needs to be some serious consequences. What we tried to do, we've kind of turned a blind eye to the abuse. And I think that just breeds more abuse. And I think if you're serious about it, you say, hey, listen, because I know you and you know me, we want to help. Our heart is to be compassionate, to help people. I don't want people, though, abusing and taking advantage of it, because, frankly, they're stealing from other people when they do that. They're stealing from that person that really needs the help. And that's been my philosophy. I've tried, I see the needs. I see the hurting people. I know that they have nowhere to turn. And that's where we as government can help people. They don't have a family. You and I have been very fortunate. We have very strong family networks that will help us through. There are real people in the world that have nowhere to turn.
No safety net.
And no safety net. And I want to be there for them. But there are other people that just, they play the system and play the game. Yeah. And I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat, you don't like that and you don't want that. And if we were more, we did a better job of policing that and making sure that abuse doesn't happen. And if you do, there are real consequences. You would start seeing, I believe, some systematic change that would save some significant dollars. I'll give you just one quick example, just because we're talking about it. The governor just recently came out with his budget. If we don't touch mass health right now, and we don't do anything, we just let it operate the way it operated last year, it will grow by $1.8 billion. $1.8 billion. We're only going to grow in revenue, which is growing at 4.8%, which isn't bad. That's $1.1 billion. Yes, that's $1.1 billion. So what he did in mass health alone is he did what they call redetermination. So basically what we didn't do for 2 years is that people that got on mass health, every year they have to, make sure that they're still financially needy, that they, we haven't done that in 2 years. So we have 150,000 more people on mass health. Well, they weren't going off if I'm getting free health care, I'm not going to pay for it, right? And that costs significant dollars. And so you say to yourself, well, if it's $800 million savings this year, what was it last year? And what was it the year before? So when you say that, it's like just running it a tighter ship would have given us, in a situation, we wouldn't be making this $800 million in cuts. So that's my point. It's not about, I want it back to the taxpayer. I want to make sure that we can continue to provide a service. And it's simply as doing, running it efficiently, effectively. Because if we're giving mass health, it should only be the people that really need it, not people who can afford it, but they game in the system.
Well, and there's so many different aspects, and it's good that we have now the check and balance in the State House up on Beacon Hill, and I think that you were talking about it earlier, that I think people see that the one-party rule just isn't working. And we picked up a few more seats this past election in November. Some more Republicans got on there. So I know there's still a little ways to go. But at least I think people are starting to realize that, you know, we need to have better check and balance, and maybe with more of an even keel, that there'll be more cooperation and more compromise going back and forth on both sides of the aisle.
And more respect.
And more respect.
You know, that's something is just, you know, when the numbers are smaller, and I sensed this when you go back, we were down to at one point 15 members. And I sensed, even people that I knew well, that there's a level of, you know, there isn't that level of respect. The more you have, the more you create that respect for one another. And there's always something to offer. You know, you have some good ideas, but you know, there's not enough of you, so that they don't pay attention. So that's, you know, that's a good thing for, you know, for everybody. And again, I'm not saying this is the Republicans are always right, or the, you know, the Democrats are always right. It's that balance. It's the same as, you know, I'm married, you know, 25 years. You know, it's not just always Vinny's way. It's, you know, it's a balance between my wife and I.
I'm sure Jennifer today.
Yeah, I know, right, exactly. We'll joke about that, but you know, it's that give and take that, you know, that makes a marriage. Well, that makes life. I mean, we give and take. We're better having, you know, hearing the other side, you know, of the story, and getting a little bit of advice, listening to it, and so that's been my experience, and frankly, I mean, it's a great opportunity. I have to say, I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it more now with the balance being greater, because you know, you have a greater input into the final result.
Well, and I think also we have, you know, 16 years as a state rep. You know, building those relationships, and even though, you know, some of those are on the other side of the aisle, now you've stepped up to state senator. So so that respect probably comes along with that, but also just those years of knowing the people on the other side of the aisle too.
You know, it's funny, in the Senate, 24 of the members of 40 were former House members. So these are people that you've worked with. So I was one of the fortunate individuals who walked in, because when I first got elected in the Massachusetts House, you know, 160, and I knew nobody. I mean, didn't know anybody. And you walk in, and so there's a learning curve. The nice thing is, going into the Senate, 24 of the members are people that I actually worked with before, and even those that weren't former House members were people that I've worked with, because of the fact that I was the ranking member on Ways and Means on the House side. So I was on conference committees. I was on conference committees on transportation. I was on clearly the financial conference committees that dealt with the Senate and the House, with 3 members on each side. So I built those relationships, and you know, so fortunately, I feel like I'm kind of hitting the ground running now. You know, that being said, I'm an individual that's filling the shoes of the former Senate president. And as for those of us in this era, we realize that Senate president, you know, probably by all accounts the most powerful legislator in the Commonwealth. You know, with the Senate president and the speaker, and you know, you step in. So you know, still some big shoes to fill. But fortunately, whoever took this seat wouldn't have been the Senate president. So, you know, I feel like, hopefully those relationships that I built over the years, you know, enables me to put our community in the Plymouth Barnstable District in good stead, and make sure that we get what I believe is our fair share. As far as legislatively, as far as philosophically, in those debates, and hopefully people continue to treat you with respect.
Well, I can remember back in 06, 06, 07, when I first came on. I was on the board of directors for the Plymouth Library Corporation, and this is when budget cuts were happening, and many of the libraries were closed on certain days, and to fulfill both your state requirement and your federal requirement for funding, we needed to stay open Sunday, and it was really tough. I remember we met at the Towne, but then I also know that you and Therese had stepped in to help find that extra funding, and then all of a sudden Plymouth was open on the weekends, and people from, I mean, as far away as Randolph were coming to the Plymouth Library because they needed computers, genealogy department, you know, whatever other things that we had available to them. And that was nice having that. Speaking of Therese, now that did she give you any advice on her way out the door and you on the way in?
You know, she did. You know, we worked together for many years, so it was never, you know, it wasn't an issue of, you know, an issue because she's a Democrat, I'm a Republican. We always got along well. You know, I just simply, you know, just be yourself. You know, work with people. You know, continue to be. I mean, I think she, you know, be who you are. You know, obviously we didn't always agree on some things. but she was always very straightforward and honest. I mean, you knew where she stood, and you know, I think I'm the same way. I'm like, you know what, I am who I am. This is, you know, you may like it or you may not like it, but I do treat people with respect, and I think that helps. And so, you know, her advice was simply, you know, be who you are. You know, continue to work hard. It's a lot more work. And she shared that. She says, this is a lot more work. And you don't realize it until you actually do it. But you just, you know, we talked earlier, this is 6 communities. I had 1, and I was out 3 or 4 nights a week. If I kept the same pace up, you know, I wouldn't have a married life anymore. But so I find that, you know, the challenge is it is a lot more work, and there's a lot more expected of you in the Senate, just because of the larger district and the different problems. Last night I was in Pembroke dealing with school committee issues. You know, the day before I'm in Falmouth, you know, talking to them and some of the issues there. You know, a couple days before that I'm in Sandwich, and they have a huge erosion problem. Their beach was wiped out. So this is what you're dealing with, a lot of different issues, and you are trying. They expect you to be the advocate to deal with the state, to bring, to have the state come and help them, assist them in the difficult times.
Obviously, anyone coming in, I know that you know, everybody has their priorities coming in, whether it's as a state rep, you know, a state senator as well, like yourself. What would you say are your top 3 to 4 priorities that, you know, Vinny deMacedo wants to get accomplished?
Well, I've always said this, you know, just because it's something that I really care about, which is, you know, you look at all the committees I'm on, they're fiscally centered. You know, I'm as a small business owner, I'm on small business, I'm on financial services, I'm on Ways and Means, so that's the kind of personal administration. Those are things that I've always talked about, and the importance of fiscal responsibility and stability, as I said. But I've said this, and I've been saying this. Actually, I said this all throughout the campaign, because I think this is probably the biggest issue that I've ever faced, and this is the opiate epidemic. Every day we read overdose. You go through the paper. 3 kids in Lynn died over the weekend from heroin. What is it that is so intriguing to our 20 to 28-year-olds that they're messing with heroin? I mean, it's just like, you hear the horror stories, you would think you'd be afraid knowing that people are dying, and yet there's just this cavalier attitude, that will never happen to me. Well, you know what? It's happening, and it's, so I just feel like we have got to do a better job of prevention. The police chief, we have, Chief Botieri, as you know.
I think I've heard that name
before.
I
think you've heard that name. He's doing a great job of trying to address the issue, the street crimes units. They're working hard at that stuff, and they're trying to address it. Our sheriff is doing a great job with Vivitrol and making sure when they come out of prison that they have the Vivitrol, which suppresses the high. We're doing a lot of good things. But I still feel we're failing in the area of prevention. And so to me, over the next 2 years, I am going to focus on trying to find ways that we can up the prevention game, that we can get into the schools, that we can get into and have this conversation. No one likes to, frankly, people don't want to talk about the fact that, our kids are, are overdosing. It's kind of somewhat, why is it so high in this area? You know what? I don't care. I want to stop this because people are dying. And so the more we talk about it, the more parents know what's going on with their kids, that they'll be more mindful, because once they're addicted, I don't care who you are. And then you and I, if we got, if we messed around with heroin and we got addicted, we can't pull ourselves, we can't stop, we can't pull ourselves. Once your brain is rewired, it's rewired. And so to me, how do we stop them from messing with it in the first place? It's a tall order, it's a long-term fix, but it's a commitment over the next 2 years that I have to trying to make and talk about that issue as much as I can. I was just at Plymouth South Middle School today, and they're talking about Career Day and stuff like that. I'm in front of a group of 25, 30 kids. I'm going to take the opportunity to say, hey, listen, do you know how dangerous this is? Do you know that you're going to rewire your brain and that you could destroy your life? You have a future. Don't ever mess with it. You know what? It may mean nothing to 25 of the 26 kids, but if that one kid, someday says, I'm not going to make that decision because you know what? I heard my brain could be rewired, and then I could destroy my life. that's, if we all do it, it's going to resonate, kind of like smoking. That, kind of like, smoking's bad for you. You've clearly seen less people smoking. Well, that's because it's not socially popular anymore. I want to make sure that, messing around with drugs is not socially popular.
Yeah. And that's so important. I mean, in my family, we've had that experience with a family member, extended family member, who mid-30s got, well, actually probably in late 20s, early 30s, got addicted to heroin. And has been on a methadone treatment, but in the meantime, her husband overdosed from it, and she's had both her young kids taken away from her. So I mean, that's a direct impact that I've felt, and you see it in, with so many other people. And it doesn't seem to be, because heroin's always been kind of looked at as, well, it's for the lower economic social people. But in a lot of articles that I've read, both nationally, it's a large percentage are coming from affluent families.
Well, and that's in large part because it's, generally it will start with prescription drugs. It will start with, your Percocets, your Perc 30s, your Oxycontin, your oxycodone, and your Vicodins, and then because they can't get them anymore, it's, well, this is a similar high for $5.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about a dime bag. A dime bag was heroin back in the day was $10. That was a dime bag.
Yeah.
It's now $5. That was 30 years ago. It's so cheap now that they get a cheap high, and so.
And it's been cut with a lot of crap in it as well. So that's why
on top of it.
Yeah.
So I mean, I've learned stuff about. I had no idea the things that the conversations. I mean, I just didn't know about this stuff. And frankly, I'm glad I didn't. But I do know that it's highly addictive, as is Oxycontin, oxycodone.
Yeah.
And there's the other side of the coin that we really have to do a better job of is prescriptions, giving out prescriptions and making sure who's getting them, who leaving prescriptions in your medicine cabinet. That to some kids it's, hey, they're not going to do the drug, but hey, if I can I can go and sell this back at school for $300 and it's sitting there and no one's using it.
Yeah.
What's the big deal? But it is a big deal, and so it's just all this education that I think needs to happen.
Well, in part, education from obviously from officials like yourself, Chief Botieri, but where's the parental part of this? And that doesn't seem to be. I know we're in a different time today. Parents are, and again, I'm generalizing on this. Parents tend to. They've got so many of their side activities and stuff where, when we came home from school, Dad came home at 6 o'clock, but Mom was always there. So, if you came home and, even back in our day, if you came home and you had maybe had a couple beers, she'd smell it on you. Mm-hmm. And, then you'd have a price to pay. And it just seems that almost the kids and the parents today sort of pass each other like ships in the night.
Well, I think, in deference to the parents, it is they are two working parents. It's a lot more challenging. Yeah. In many cases, it's a single parent, and the challenges they face. And then you have the whole world of computers. That for all of us, we're not as computer savvy as our children. Yeah. And so the conversations that they're having, you would know what the conversation. My mother would know the conversation. I'm on the phone. She knew what was going on at all times.
Yeah, it's true.
It's a different world now. The IM, instant messaging. They're texting. They're Snapchatting, Facebooking. So there's so many areas that it's very difficult to keep track of all of that. So the challenges are clearly greater as a parent. But at the same token, the responsibility is greater, and you have to spend the time. My wife and I do and I'm out a lot, and I'm fortunate that my wife has had the ability to only works a couple days a week, she's there. But you have to spend that extra time and invest because it is the responsibility of the parent to kind of watch, because there are signs out there that you can see that hopefully you can see earlier on that will lead you to start questioning. No one thinks their kid's going to do drugs. No. I mean, you wouldn't imagine it. But it's happening, and it's happening to everybody. As you said, you see it in your family. I'll tell you, the people that are listening right now, there isn't anybody that doesn't have someone that they know that's affected by this. Yeah. It's just reality, and none of us are immune, and none of us are that great. People are people. Once you get you play with it. Once you get hooked, you're hooked, and it owns you.
Heroin doesn't discriminate.
It certainly doesn't discriminate.
It doesn't. And And so I'm glad that that's been a focal point. I know I've talked to Representative Matt Muratori, and he, that's a big passion of his as well. Speaking of your family, we're talking about lessons that you've learned since you've been in the legislature since 1998. You're a great dad. I see you with your kids. They're always at the events. Jonathan's a character, without a doubt. Little Vinny, and but. What do you learn, from your kids that helps you not just be a better father, a better, husband, but also just as a better person, or, again, being that civil servant? What things do you learn from your kids?
I enjoy spending time with my kids. Yeah. I mean, we have a lot of fun. I mean, just tonight, I was in Boston. I ran back before I was coming on the show. I went back. I had that hour and a half, but in between, we had dinner. Just sitting at the dinner table. My daughter said to me, I just enjoy. And she's back from my daughter's back from college right now.
Natalie,
spring break, yeah. And it's just like she just said, just enjoy dinner time, because you have the conversations, you're talking. You build those relationships. You need to be a parent, but as my children are now older, 21, 18, and 16, it's enjoying spending time with them and being their friend, and the fact that they want to be with you. It's a nice thing. I mean, I know kids that they're busy with their friends and they're doing or other things that the girlfriend or boyfriends. But invest the time, build the relationships, and I've tried to do that with my kids as much as I possibly can, and so that's where for me is keep that close bond. We're busy. We all have our professional lives that will drive us, but don't ever lose sight. And I try to make a real point of making sure that family time is sacrosanct, that you don't cross that line and be gone too much, because I could be, as I said, every single night.
Exactly.
And I just and unfortunately for me, the kids have been great. They're very disciplined. They're great students. I'll be honest with you, better than I was when I was their age. I think they get that from mom. But as anything, like a standard, just because you did, doesn't mean you don't keep a standard up for your children. We've tried to put a standard up for them that they can excel. If they don't, we don't kill them. But you just try. Hey, listen. These are your opportunities. You try to share with them. If they do well, the benefits of that, and that's what we've done. And they've, frankly, they've done it.
You're very blessed. I mean, I go to many events that I see you at, and your kids are there. Your wife always looks upon you with pride. Your kids do. And they're just such a blessing to see that, and it's just I marvel at that, because again they're really great kids, and they're going to do very well.
One of the things that I taught them that frankly my parents taught me, and I just think this is one of the most powerful things in anyone, is that respect for people, respect for elders. That was just something that it was ingrained in me as a kid.
Oh, same here.
And that's the way we were brought up. And I drill that into my kids. Like, if someone's old, you deserve respect, whether it's the teacher, the police officer, whoever your boss. You treat them with respect, and you get it back. And that's just something that unfortunately I was drilled into. It served me well. Mm-hmm. My children, I know that I've kind of drilled that into them, and I know that it served them well, because they'll meet you and I don't always get that from kids. I own a gas station, and I don't always get that from some of my the younger kids that work for me. Although I got a great crew right now, really good. But it's something that is kind of like a lost art.
It is,
and it's simple. It's not rocket science.
But again, it's something where I don't think and again, generalizing, the parents of today are reinforcing that in their children, like our parents did, and so it's great, and their parents did. Yeah. So it's good to see that that's continuing. Ken, can we? I know we've got some photos that we wanted to pop up. Can we throw a couple of those up, and Vinny can talk to? These are some of the campaign photos and some photos of Vinny in action. So, do we have that available to us, Ken? Okay, let me know when you get that, and we will continue here. I did see just recently, I think it was on your Facebook, that you and our State Rep Matt Muratori, Attorney General Maura Healey, were at Plymouth North, I believe it was. Talk a little bit about that. It seemed like it was again, challenging the schools to, the challenges that they all obviously face from, the discipline part of it, the drug part of it, but also the education part. How did that go?
Well, first of all, it was, it's a big deal. You had the Attorney General coming out to Plymouth North. The principal there, Kathleen McSweeney, actually helped through it. She had a friend, so she helped on the campaign. So she got to know the Attorney General. So it was nice to get the Attorney General down there. It's great for the kids to see that. In the Attorney General, it's a big deal. It's like, getting the governor down, the Attorney General. These are, statewide offices. And so in that regard, when someone like of that caliber was coming to your district, we wanted to say hello. She talked to the kids. She talked to them about her job, what she did. Talked about the opiate epidemic. Talked about financial literacy, which is is a big deal. Something that I've been very passionate as well. It is whether we like it or not, when you're in public office and these kids, they see these individuals as role models. And, the Attorney General is, someone who's been very accomplished. She was a professional basketball player, which I didn't realize.
That's how shooting baskets on the campaign.
She's about this tall, and she kind of jokes about the fact, what, are you making fun of me that I'm short? But she is very, is very talented. I think, like anything, we all have these little niches, and, so, when she kind of, as a joke, she took, basketball and spun it on her finger at the Democratic convention. And I'll tell you.
No kidding.
Not for nothing, but it was something they caught their eye. Yeah. It's just, because we're real. You see these political figures and they say all these things. They're real. Tim Cahill, when Tim Cahill ran for treasurer, it was Tim Cahill's little thing there with his kids, and voting for their father. That made him real to people, and because people kind of feel disconnected from their elected officials, and she made she did a good job of making making herself real, and I think that clearly helped her in her election bid.
Yeah, and what I've seen from her so far, and what I've seen her talk on TV, I like her. Yeah, she really seems to be there for the people. So I think we've got some pictures here. Let's see. Can you see that, Vinny?
Yeah, I can see that. That was election night.
That was election night,
and here at the Radisson, and some good some supporters that came out for both Matt and I. That was Matt and I decided. As Matt and I are good friends, and we worked together. We had our victory party together. Unfortunately, it was a victory for both of us. Worked out well, and just reaching out to thank all those people, because I tell you, so many people helped. This was a huge campaign for us. A lot of area to cover. Could not do it by yourself, or even the small group that you've been part of for many years. And just all of those people helped in different ways, and it was really made a big difference.
And I actually called you, I think, from upstate New York.
Yeah, but sure. You
I was
there.
up. I was at a national
I was
meeting.
I was keeping track of that. Right there. So.
Yeah. Okay, we got another one here.
Sure. Now this is the Marabou. This is the groundbreaking of the nice thing when you've been around for 16 years. You've been at a lot of groundbreakings. Yeah. I was at the groundbreaking at the courthouse. I was at the groundbreaking at the Plymouth North. I hope to be at the groundbreaking of Plymouth South. This was at the Marabou. This new. Hotel, kind of like a boutique hotel, Spa. Right here in the town of Plymouth. As you know, Pine Hills, one of the greatest developments in the nation, frankly, for the type of environment that it's created. Yeah. I mean, it's just what talent pool that's come out of the Pine Hills, the people that have moved to Massachusetts, moved to right here in Plymouth from all over the country and even Massachusetts to live here. We've just brought a lot of talented. There's like 2,700 homes. Yeah. We've brought a lot of talented people in there, and so really been blessed, and frankly been a great tax base as well.
Oh, yeah,
and the Marabou just kind of fits in with that. It's a great new hotel, and so I had a chance to be there. Now it's up and built, and it's beautiful. So
I think there's actually a chamber thing coming up there soon. I think there is, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, and then you've got. I mean, you even seen the migration. Mamma Mia's opened up a place down there. You got East Bay's got a place there. Yeah. and a great grocery store, the market there, and so it is great to see. Let's see if we got another picture.
Okay, well, this, I just joked about Maura Healey with the basketball, and it's like that little angles. The Eagle was a group of people. We had the parade, and I love a parade. We've always enjoyed getting part. That was some of my friends and supporters that joined me. And the Eagle, of course, as you know, my brher Ollie runs the Thanksgiving Day parade. Yeah. He had made that years ago. Came up with the idea, Vinny, hey, why don't we paint it red, white, and blue, and and I'll mount it up on a trailer. So we did that, and it's funny. I put it at different corners, all over town, and it's funny that a lot of people. In Plymouth, a lot of people knew me, but in Bourne and in Sandwich, that's the guy with the Eagle. And you know what? It was that connection. It's just, hey, politics is. It's a lot of different things, but it's also marketing, and that was a way to market. So,
what was interesting is, before you mentioned, when I saw the float, I was going to say, did Ollie help with that?
Oh, yeah. I'm very fortunate to have a very talented, tenacious brother.
As a matter of fact, we just connected on Facebook. He had reached out to friend me on Facebook, and I said, sure. Now, some of you might not have known that not only is Vinny on a gas station, he was a state rep, and he's a state senator now, but he's also the conductor of the Philharmonic.
What do you think? That's pretty impressive, huh?
It's very impressive.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing what you can do in a still shot?
Yeah. No, did they Photoshop that in there?
No, that was real, and I was there.
That must have been awesome.
Stephen Cariotis, actually, they had a conductor for a song. Of course, it's pre-set up, but I got to conduct for one song at the Christmas Philharmonic, and it was a lot of fun. I have to tell you, it was. I really enjoyed having that opportunity.
Yeah.
I know I wasn't really doing anything, but it looked good, and so that's a shot from that. So.
Well, I've always kind of interesting because I've always used an analogy with my sales teams over the years that a true leader, like yourself, Governor Baker, we're like conductors of orchestras, and we have to make sure that we hire people that know how to not only just be able to tune their instruments, but to be able to play their instruments. And what our job is to make it all sound good. And that's really what, as I always make that analogy of, we are conductors of an orchestra, but our orchestras are whatever field, that we may be in, because that's really what we have to do.
Yeah, and it's bringing people together. I know that we're very fortunate here. We have the Plymouth Philharmonic right here, and Plymouth has really become a cultural center. You see the Spire Center, what Bob Hollis has done with that, bringing all these musicians and artists together. We have the Plymouth Cultural Facility right down there on North Street.
Project Arts, which I sit on the board.
And Project Arts. We just have so much going on, the Philharmonic, and that's what brings people here. So it's not just, hey, listen, we have the history. We own the history. And, frankly, it's America's hometown. This is where it all started. But when you get here, you need some other things to do to be part of it. Yeah. So we have a lot going on right now, and I'm really, frankly, proud of it. It's been a development. It's been a work in progress. Been a lot of people, putting a lot of time and effort and a lot of volunteerism to get to that place. But I think we've arrived. I think people realize. Look at Memorial Hall. It's become a hotspot. I mean, there were years that Memorial Hall was a loser financially.
Yeah, I remember.
It is making money now. People come to Memorial Hall. We're having all kinds of events there. My good friend Pat O'Brien runs Memorial Hall, and it's a money maker now for the town of Plymouth. And it was a progress to get to that point. The Spire Center, it's hopping. It's so many areas that we frankly have become the hot spot in this region.
Well, and speaking of Spire, I mean, I sit on the board with Mike Landers for Project Arts, and we've been mainly known as the Wednesday free concerts during the summer. Well, now with Spires, we've done a lot of co-promotions with them. Matter of fact, Friday the 27th of February, we actually had Livingston Taylor in.
Yes.
And it was fantastic. Yeah. And so, matter of fact, Pat, Livingston is his, I think, girlfriend or lady friend, and then Mike and I were at the Driftwood having a beer and a bite to eat before the show. And I had bought a book from Livingston because he teaches at Berkeley called Stage Performing, because I use it in my speaking business because it talks about how to work a stage and stuff like that. So I bought the book back about a year or so ago, and I brought it in for him to autograph. But I also brought him my book autographed. So there's a thing on Facebook, a picture that I posted, but Pat took the picture because Mike Landers didn't know how to use the phone to take a picture. And so it's Livingston holding my autograph book and me holding Livingston's autograph book, and we're together. And it was, but the Spires is such a great event, and you know, if you out there haven't been to the Spires yet, you've got to go. We've got a lot of great shows, but it also enables Project Arts to continue to raise money 12 months out of the year. Because you know, to put those shows on, it's not cheap.
And you mentioned, you know, Mike Landers. He's been laboring as long as I've been in office, making sure we have that. Well, you know what? When you have a free concert down in the water, what does that do? I mean, that, you know, I know of myself, if I'm traveling, you stop someplace and you've got some music. I mean, how beautiful listening to, and I remember before I was even, because he's had Livingston in before, just sitting, you know, down on Coles Hill, listening to Livingston Taylor, overlooking the harbor. I mean, it doesn't get better than that. If he can get James Taylor, I'd be a little bit, you know, I love his brother. I grew up as a James Taylor fan, and I was a big fan of his brother as well. But those are the type of things, and you know, as you said, he's labored. It was, you know, it's, as I say, you build off of these things. Project Art was there for many years, and that's what opens the door for other things to grow. And now we've become the place. We've become the place that a lot of people look to as far as, you know, from a cultural perspective, and that adds to the fabric of our communities. So.
Okay, well, we've got about 2 minutes left. I just want to make sure that I've gotten through most of my stuff. You know, so Plymouth area and Barnstable. What those are your two districts. What towns do those include?
Well, it starts with, you know, down at the end is Falmouth, Woods Hole. You know, that's how you get to Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket. Then it's the town of Bourne and Sandwich that I represent down there, which is over the bridge. And of course we have Plymouth, Kingston, where I grew up, and Pembroke, which I went to Silver Lake. So, you know, it's funny that the northern part, I've actually got some, you know, some really close ties because you know, my brother Ollie is still in Kingston. You know, it's where I grew up my entire life. You know, Silver Lake, you know, we played sports, and so we have those, you know, those connections, and then represent Plymouth for 16 years. But over the Cape, it's new territory. You know, I've had some, you know, some nice inroads there and built some relationships. But I will say that's the place that you know, I want to build and, you know, make some more relationships, because I want to be effective for the community. I want to prove to them that I'm not just the guy from, you know, north of the bridge, that I care, and I'm going to fight as hard for them as I have for this community.
Well, and you definitely have fought hard for the you know, community of Plymouth. I believe, what, a 73%. Yes. You won by 73% of the vote.
And I have to tell you, that was the most rewarding thing for me, is, you know, serving 16 years and to see my community come out with 73% of the vote. I've never done that well, so thank you, Plymouth. Great.
Well, Vinny, I want to thank you. This is the man, Vinny deMacedo, state senator, and you can always get a hold of Vinny at. What's your website?
www.demacedo.org.
Yeah, or down at the gas station if you need gas.
That's right, early in the morning from 6 to 7 at RWA Mobile.
Thank you, everybody. Ken, Karen, thank you very much. And again, love Karen. This guy. And just keep up the good work, Vinny, and give him hell up on the hill.
Will do.
All right, take care, everybody. Have a great night, everybody.